Welcome everybody. It's Rev. We're doing a winter tier list for GOAT format. I have a lot more informative an opinion, I think, a lot more experience with a lot of these decks, and have hopefully become a better player along with all of you guys. So the meta's had some pretty cool developments too, so I think it's worth doing an update on my opinion here. Uh, Something to consider is subscribing, and that's because, as Sun Tzu once said, every battle is lost before it's ever fought. Think about it. All right, so we're going to just get right into it. I'm probably going to keep this one a lot shorter. I don't want to ramble on too much about um, like each and every one of these decks. Um, and while we're at it, tier one we're going to define as the best decks, and yes, decks, not just Chaos Turbo. Tier two also tournament winning can win a tournament with it, and then so on and so forth. I do need to make one adjustment. Tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four. Ass. Ass. Alright. So I don't know if we want to do this in random order. I have some actually pretty updated opinions about goat control. And in my last tier list video, I gave goat control a pretty hard time. And I think I was wrong about it, honestly. I think goat control is actually pretty fucking good. I think my biggest gripe with it is people were playing it wrong. Not playing it wrong. Well, yeah, they were. They were playing it wrong and building it wrong. Um, but I think the correct way to play this deck is, and even some of my like more experienced control players disagree, like even people on my War League team, but I think the best way to play this deck is the way John Claude Van Damme does, which is like the super crazy high ceiling, like running a Fusilier, a Morphing Jar, a Demock, a Premature Burial, a Giant Trunade, and just like all the like nutso like super high ceiling cards. Because I've not only seen him play, but I played against him, and that deck is fucking terrifying. And I think it's like one of the only decks that, um, of course, I think is very favored against warriors, but it's also, I think it can like beat Turbo like consistently enough. And then when you think about like what are its other matchups in the meta, it's like okay, so like yeah, of course you like when you're building any deck, like game plan number one needs to be Chaos Turbo, gameplay plan number two needs to focus around Warrior, but like everything else, like it goes toe to toe with Chaos Control. It goes toe to toe, or it's favored against Earth Aggro. It's favored against pretty much like anything that uses the battle phase to win quickly, like Reasoning Gate Turbo. Um, I think Burn probably is a little difficult, but Burn's falling out of the meta, and it's pretty darn easy to side for Burn effectively if it really becomes a problem. So, like, I think like the Chaos Turbo matchup, like if built properly, is it's maybe not like a 50-50. You're slightly unfavored, I think, but like all you need to do is like set up some like ridiculous combos, and you have really broken extra deck access or fusion deck access, and like you can win a lot versus like like even just like a slightly above average Chaos Turbo player. So I think Goat Control's really good. Like it's going in tier two. Um, I really think one of the issues with Goat Control is it is pretty hard to play. And I think there's just not enough players willing to put in the work to get really good with it. I don't think it's like the hardest deck in the format to play, but like to get really, really good with goat control, it's a lot harder than like stuff like Chaos Turbo. Bazoo return, I mean, like a lot of this more casual stuff, like I don't even want to spend any time on. I think it's ass. Bazoo's just too slow. Like Dimension Fusion, yeah, it's broken, but it's just can't keep up with like stuff in the map. We'll put it at tier four. We'll put it at tier four. Pac-Man is garbage. It's it's like a deck that was designed to lose the Chaos Turbo. Chaos Turbo just has way too much disruption. Last turn's shit. Um, Empty Jar is bad. Monarchs are tier 4. Um, they just don't really do enough. Like if this were a format with Ryza or Caius, I think Monarchs could actually be like pretty fucking good, but the issue with this era of Monarchs is they only do a specific thing, so good players can very effectively play around Monarchs and Thestalos. Like, yeah, you can't really play around Thestalos, but it's just really, really, really bad in GOAT format, um, especially against Chaos Turbo. And then, like, if you go up against Warrior, they're not going to have any hand at all. Um, Mobius, like, everything's chainable nowadays, or if you're going up against Warrior, you're just going to get negated. Zaborg is good. We're going to say a lot more on Zaborg, but not like combining all of these. I believe it or not think the most underutilized Monarch, like the second best Monarch, is Grand Mark. Not enough people play Grand Mark. I think it's more of just like it has to find its way into the right deck because the typing is bad. Like just Earth doesn't do anything. But I think like certain Earth aggro builds like could have just like a little bit of top on them and like have a Grand Mark and it served the exact same purpose as a Borg, stuff like the pile deck. But pure monarchs is very, very bad. I just like it's too like if you're really like playing a good player with monarchs, like you're playing monarchs and you're playing against a good player, you're just not gonna win. Zombies is more or less an aggro deck. I don't think it's good. I think it's probably better than monarchs. I think it's better than Bazoo, and I think Bazoo is better than monarchs. Um, Stein. Uh, I don't think Stein's very good. I think it's just kind of one of those decks where if you're running hot and like you get your opponent to like get a few incorrect reasoning calls, you can win a lot. Like you can just have a hot streak. Like there was a tournament earlier in the year where like a few players just brought Stein and just kind of like blew like through like the top cut. Um, and but I just don't think like it's one of those decks that doesn't have enough play lines for a good player to be good with it. The like the win con is super linear and like one dimensional. So um, something I can't remember who said this, but like actually, you know what? I think it was Patrick Hoban, like in an interview, but he was saying like most like decks in a lot of formats are defined like tier one, tier two, tier three, but like the tier one decks typically have more plays that they can do on any given turn, like more good plays. So like a tier three deck might have like one decent play and like maybe a second like good play. Like a tier two deck might have like one good play and one like kind of good play. And then like the tier one decks have like three good plays, and it's up to the good players to like kind of have a hierarchy of like what those good plays are and find those lines. Which I think is true. Like I mean, if you think about like even Edison, like the best deck's probably Black Wings, and there are usually quite a few different ways you can play every single turn. So Stein has the exact opposite problem. You have like no flexibility with how you play, so it's kind of just shit. And even if it did get like really popular and good, it's just way too easy to side against. You just blow your load and like get Karibo'd or Threatening Roared or Hollowed Life Barrier. Uh, Chaos Turbo. I'm not going to say a lot on this. Every time I talk about Chaos Turbo, I go on a rant. It's the best deck in the format. Um, I do not think it sits in a tier by itself, though. I really, really don't. Um, I think it is the best, but I don't think it's like a full tier above everything else. And we'll talk about what those other decks are. Um, Recruiter Chaos, because it runs Chaos, it automatically gets a spot in tier 3, but it's just not really that good. Creature Swap's like a good card, but Recruiters are not. Chaos Control, I think this is worse than Goat Control. Um, yeah, you get to run Chaos, but like the thing that makes Chaos work in Chaos Turbo is that you like surround it by a bunch of really consistent stuff, like upstarts, draw cards, and like the discard engine can brick at times, but um like it's just surrounded by like a bunch of other cards that just like get your deck in motion, like spies and decos and a whole bunch of other stuff like Night Assailants to get stuff back and like make your Gracefuls live. But like if you just play like the discard engine and then you add in a whole bunch of more bricks, like the whole deck just kind of becomes a brick at times. So I just think like Chaos Turbo does have to build around its discard engine, and the discard engine's like made better by other cards. Like the discard engine in Chaos Control is made worse by the goat package. Um, Relinquish Chaos. So this deck is it seemed popular for a while, and I just don't think enough people are playing it. Um, what I like about this deck is I think if it's built properly, you can kind of blank most Nobleman's game one, and then like just play mind games and bring in a bunch of sets like Spy and maybe an additional Faith game too. Um, and then just like get really aggressive. Like you just summon something that recruits to your hand, and your discard engine flows really, really well with this. Chaos is live faster than Chaos Turbo, believe it or not. And you're summoning stuff in face-up attack position, usually with 1400. It abuses Tsukiyomi better. Um, so I think this deck is really, really good if built properly, and like with stuff like Kaiku's, where you basically just try to like run over your opponent and then like spam chaos. I don't think it should be played like a control deck. I think it's meant to be like not an aggro deck like Warrior, but like an aggressive deck with just a whole lot more top to it with chaos. So I think it's tier two, and I think it's better than Chaos Control. Library, this deck's not very good. Um, a lot of people say that like if like the dueling book glitch was fixed and it was allowed in like certain tournaments that it would like potentially ruin the format, but I would just challenge you to um spend like 30 minutes or like an hour or something and just try to like play out a few hands in solo mode, and you'll realize that like even turn one, like going first, you're not gonna like FTK as much as you think. And then after turn one or going second, this deck can like hardly win. Like like this is a Chaos Turbo meta where you're like gonna have Regeki breaks just blow your shit up immediately. Um, and then like your other matchup, Warrior has a bunch of Solemns. Like you're just not gonna win. Like if this deck had like a going first win rate of like 70%, like you could just sack your way through tournaments. But like I don't think your going first win rate is like that high at all. Like I don't even I'm not even sure it's above 50. So it's going in tier four. Um, Earth aggro. Um, my opinion's changed a little bit on this. I think it is better than Chaos Control, but worse than Relinquished and worse than Goat Control by quite a bit. Earth aggro is, I think, a very good deck, but the problem with Earth aggro as it compares to Warrior is my comment on playlines. It's a lot more linear, and if you're going to play an aggro deck, you might as well just use something like Warrior that takes a lot more skill and has a lot more playlines and allows you to be good as a player, and like has just a lot of different ways to express yourself and like gain incremental advantage. Like when I've played Earth aggro most successfully, like the games you win are the ones that you just get the most belligerent. It's like, okay, it's turn two. Can I play around Mirror Force and Torrential and ever win? And the answer, like almost always, is no. It's like you fucking get your ass on the board and start swinging. Like that's all you can do. And like at least with like Warrior, you have a bunch of negates you have to think about. You have like a whole toolbox that you have to utilize properly. You have the top of chaos. Um, so and like when I say top, I just mean like the heavy parts of your deck, like chaos or like I don't know, like Zaborg and Pile and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think this deck's really all it's cracked up to be. I think it very easily can win tournaments. Um, I just think it's one of those decks that nerfs you as a player a little bit. We're gonna do all the cat stuff uh, right away, and I'm gonna like probably surprise some people with this, but I've been working on a lot of cat stuff, and I've played um, a metric shit ton of cat burn, which is this icon. I have played several games of Earth aggro cat, and then there are like some other pure cat things which I'm theory crafting right now. So I'm not going to actually list this just because I don't know, but there are some like theory crafting, just like pure cat things that I'm theory crafting that I think are very promising. So Earth cat, I think this is a bad deck for the most part. I've played it, and if you watch my cat videos, like you'll know my thoughts on it. But if you haven't, the idea like that I have about this deck, or the gripe that I have with this deck, is that like you can run like 3 to 4 beaters, and then like the rest of your monster lineup is just filled with cat shit. I didn't mean that like as a pun, but like cat OTK like stuff, because you have to like at least run 6 cat targets, so you're probably doing like triple Milas, 2 wombat, and a panda, or like maybe you go like some other variant of that, and then you have the 3 cats, so that's 9 cards. So I just don't think like a monster centric deck could ever work with the cat engine very well, because with cat, um, like it takes up so much monster space in your monster lineup that like it's best to just like use burn probably. And this also can't utilize the fifth, fourth and fifth like Trinity pieces, which are the cyber jars and the or the cyber and the morphing jar. I guess it can use them, but I just don't think it I don't think it can use them as well as something like burn. And cat burn, and I'm theory crafting like one very out there cat burn deck right now, and I think it shows promise. But like the more traditional cat burn, which like, the list that I settled on is very close to Pui's topping list, with some different iterations in the side. But I haven't really ever played a deck in Goat that I've just like had my socks completely knocked off with. Um, I think this is the number one deck that is in contention for tier one. Like I think it's just because I don't know yet, but like this is better than like all of this by like a lot in my experience. And maybe I just went on like a run with it, but I played in Academy League, and in Academy League I was playing against really good players, and I was playing not that great with this deck. Um, I mean, I was playing it better than most people just because nobody plays it, but I wasn't playing optimally. Like, I still have a lot to learn with this deck, but I was probably in Academy League, like, I don't know, 65, 70% win rate. And then I was playing on ladder, and I was probably like 80% win rate. And that was over a lot of games, because what I did with Cat was I like taking a new deck to locals, and we do goat locals once every 2 months, so I'll just like learn a new deck, and I'll just grind the shit out of a deck. So like I did that with goat control and was pleasantly surprised. Like I did it with, a bunch of other shit. Um, but like with Cat, I just went on ladder and I just like felt like invincible because nobody knows how to play against this. And this deck is really, really good against not so good players, which concerns me. Um, and it makes me wonder like if it's as effective against really good players. But like I think like even really good players don't really know how to play against this that well. And I think like the way the deck is built, it inherently like nerfs good players too, because you can't really have Solemns in versus this deck in games 2 and 3, and Cat Burn should be running Solemns in the side. So like I've just really never felt like I've played a deck this strong. And like the weird thing about it is like most games I kind of felt like I was out of. Like the most games that I won, I was like, all right, yeah, this is gonna be like I probably have like a 25% chance to win this. And like I was probably winning 60% of those games, like just out of nowhere. Like I was just like just out of fucking nowhere. Like I just stick a floodgate and then I draw for like 3 turns, or like I'm just like on a dead will, and then like cat comes at the right time. So like this deck just has like a way, or like I resolve a jar, which is arguably better than resolving a trinity in this deck. Um, so like yeah, I'm just very very impressed with this deck. My biggest issue with it is I haven't been playing it much recently. I've been kind of grinding Chaos Turbo, um, and it's really hard. And there's a lot of stuff that I think is like not figured out yet with it. Um, like the really really big thing that I'm thinking about is like what the cat targets look like. Because right now I'm on uh triple panda, one Milas, and two wombat, and I just don't know if that's right. Because like with three wombat, you can OTK just with cat will, um, without like Stein and stuff. But or not triple wombat, triple Milas. Um, but then you have to run three Milas, and Milas is just like believe it or not, one of the best turn one plays, like if your opponent gives the opportunity to do it, is like summon a Des Wombat and attack. And like if you get in that 1600 damage, like you're really really far ahead. Like that's a really really good play, just because you get 16 free, um, and then like you're probably just gonna be able to win the game. And if you get like two pokes in, like game over. Like it's just fucking game over. You're like your opponent's never coming back from that, just because you have so much burst. Um, so yeah, this deck's just like knocked my socks off how good it is. Maybe I was just on the like most ridiculous streak ever, but um, at some point, um, I do want to start like experimenting with this more, and like just figuring out like and perfecting it and tweaking it and trying some more experimental variants. Like the one I'm experimenting with right now, or at least theory crafting, I think has a lot of promise, and it doesn't look like anything that's ever been built before. Um, Pile. If you're unfamiliar, like warrior pile is basically just let's some people call it thunderclap. I called it Zaborgish Morg. It's basically a very aggressive warrior deck with a little bit more top, like Zaborg, and maybe an additional Sork. I think this deck is tier one. Um, it was all the rage for like a month. It was all the rage for like 3 weeks, and it's kind of died down. But there are a few other people that are still playing it, and they're all topping. Um, I think it's a really good step in the right direction with Warrior. Um, and I'm theory crafting another pile deck, which I think also has a lot of promise. It does like a lot of what pile does, but better. Um, but it's a little bit more glass cannon, so I don't know. But pile, I think, is just it's a very very um, underplayed deck. Just because like when somebody looks on goatformat.com, they just see like Warrior and Chaos Turbo and they just net deck whatever that is. But I think we need some more pile players. It's just harder to side against, in my opinion. And I think it beats Chaos Turbo on average, and it still can go like toe to toe with Warrior. So yeah, I just think it just has that additional oomph that I was kind of talking about, like that additional top with Saborg. I think is really really important to the deck. Like even if it's just a one of Zaborg, like two maybe too much, but I think it helps the deck a lot. Warrior, I still do think Warrior for now, just because Pile's unproven. I still do think Warrior is better. Um, I don't think there's a lot to say about it. I think this is the correct order. I think in tier one it is Chaos Turbo, Warrior, and then Pile. Um, Pile's just it's underexplored, and there aren't enough good players like theory crafting it at this point. But I really do think you get the best of both worlds with Pile. It just mixes in a lot of very good stuff. All right, and really only two more decks left. I'm not going to do Return. I'm not doing Gravekeepers. I don't know what this is. I guess we can do DMOC FTK. Neos Dadlius, like pure cat variants, I don't know yet really, but like DMOC FTK is tier 4, not very good. It's too inconsistent. Nerfs you as a player, linear. Return from the different dimension, I guess we can do. This can be built so many different ways, so I don't know, like... Return's one of the most broken cards in the format, but nobody plays it. So I think I don't know like exactly what deck would look like, but like there's probably some return thing that's in tier three. Um, like something with a bunch of flips that like gets your spies banished, and maybe some other flips like it plays 3 deco, just gets those banished, and then like can just randomly OTK you with return. Yeah, I think that could like work. Um, Burn, it's definitely a tier two deck. I gotta think of where I'm gonna put this. Um, do I think Burn is better than these? Yes, I do. Do I think it's better than Goat Control? Eh, very close. I think it's a little bit worse than Goat Control, just because it's too easy to side against. And I think that's another reason why Cat Burn is better, just because it's harder to side against and Cat Burn has a better side plan. Um, and it's harder to play against. But Burn, I think it's a really good deck. I just think there aren't enough good players on it. Like there are probably less than five. There are probably less than, yeah, there's probably less than like five good Burn players. Um, I think like of course Pui's one of the best Burn players in the format. Um, I think an Italian by the name of Maru is really good. Somebody that I think is really slept on is Madcap. Um, I just don't think enough people are talking about him, and if you watch him, he like just knows how to play well. Um, but I just like if we just had more players playing it, um, I think the deck would surprise a lot of people. It's a pretty hard deck to play, and another issue is like it cycles in and out of the meta just because sideboards really do hurt it. Like you just have sickos like AJT that side like five fucking anti-burn cards, and like if you get matched up with them in a tournament, like you just automatically lose that round, which is very tough. And then you have people that just like totally disrespect it. They're like, yeah, maybe I'll side like one walk. Um, so I don't know. I think I'm having a really tough time. Like because goat control suffers from like a very like similar issue, which is I just don't think it's played enough, and I don't think the players that play it are like there's only a handful of really good control players. There are like even fewer good cat players, um, and then like all the good players basically crowd into Chaos Turbo and Warrior, and then there's like only a few people that play Pile well as well. So like there's like maybe like three people that play Earth aggro well. So yeah, it's just really hard when like there is a definitive best deck and it draws away all of the talent, to see like what else could be good. And then lastly is Reasoning Gate Turbo. I think this deck is not as good as I once thought. I think it's the top of tier three. Um, the losses to this, like when I lose to this deck, it's humiliating and it feels absurdly unfair, but I just don't think it has the results to warrant a tier two, at this point. And I think like the deck also is quite hard to play, and there are once again only a few like really good players on the deck, and like even players that were good with it have kind of stepped away. Like Delinquent is probably like one of the best players. Um, Crap, who am I? Now I'm forgetting his name. Matt Uber. He plays like uh, a lot of different stuff, but like at some point I believe is on Reasoning Gate Turbo, and I think he's given that up. Um, so like a lot of the talent has just left the Reasoning Gate Turbo pool, and I don't think the deck is all that good. And I think it's also a deck like when you know how to play against it, it gets like a quite a bit worse. Because if you like use reasoning gate on ladder, like you're just gonna have players that just give you too much time. They'll like sit like behind like a magician of faith or like a spy or like two spies or something, and like they just won't get aggressive. Like that's not how you want to play against this deck. So I just think the deck's too inconsistent. I think if you had like one of the top like five or top 10 like Chaos Turbo players, like just grind this, you could probably move it up to tier 2 just because I think it is a very skill intensive deck. But like the more I've played it, I'm like, do I do I ever really want to like play a deck where the vast majority of my matches are based on whether or not my opponent guesses correctly on reasoning? I don't think so. I really, really don't think so. Because if you whiff on a reasoning, like you probably just lose, and that does not feel good. Um, and then like if you just don't draw like a scapegoat turn one to like stall out for a turn before you can assemble like something like a true nade to clear back row, you just lose. Sometimes if you hit the wrong thing with monster gate, you lose. The difficult part is like you don't know exactly what your combo is going to be in advance with reasoning or monster gate, so you kind of have to like do like a statistical guess and just be like, if I miss here or if I like whiff here, like what spells am I potentially gonna mill? Like how far am I gonna be able to extend? Like if my opponent calls incorrectly, like and you don't even know what they're gonna call like before the fact with reasoning. So it's not really that good. I just think the explosive nature of it does put it above all of these for the time being. And I think like a really really skilled player, um, you know, could top tournaments with this uh, somewhat consistently. Um, I just think it like takes a little bit of a sicko to play this deck. Like it's mental torture, like just having this many non-games. Like a big pet peeve of mine is like even if a deck had like a higher win rate than everything else in the format, like if it just like all of the games you lost were just like total non-games and you had no shot, like behaviorally, like and emotionally, that's very difficult to deal with. And I think that's one of the issues with Reasoning Gate, which is just there are games where you're just like, all right, like I'm just gonna like throw my fucking cards in the trash, like just not play. So it's very difficult. So those are my thoughts. We are gonna do a review. Um, Obviously, number one, make sure nothing's out of place. Warrior number two, pile number three. I think this is really good, and I think there are a few innovations that people aren't onto yet. Um, I'm very tempted to put this in tier one. Like this is the most um, tier one like deck that I've feel like I've played, but I'm not confident enough yet. I've played probably like 150, probably like 100 games with this deck, but I still don't feel that competent with it. And with Cat, um, I really do think it kind of comes down to how many Trinity pieces you can play, which you can play Pot and Graceful and two jars, so you get four Trinity pieces. Chaos Turbo can play four. You get Pot, Duo, Graceful, and you get card destruction. So it's one of the only decks that I think can effectively play four Trinity pieces. Um, and then Goat Control is better than this, which is better than this, which is better than this. Um, I think Stein's better than Recruiter Chaos, just because Recruiter Chaos is a deck that just has another deck do something better than it in every single facet. At least with Stein, like not many other decks can kill you in one turn as effectively as Stein. Everything that this deck does is just outclassed in one way or another by something in tier one or two. This is fine, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. And like I'm not even ordering these down here. Like I think they're all quite bad. Although I think actually probably Empty Jar is better than these two. So that's my tier list. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if I offended you. I have a way of doing that, like with a lot of people's pet decks. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.